Welcome to TechGirlz new workshop, Build Your Own Voice App with VoiceFlow. We're excited to be offering this new workshop where girls can develop their own voice app for either Alexa or Google Home and have the control to really customize the app that they want to make. My name is Donna Cusimano. I'm the curriculum director or curriculum manager for TechGirlz, and I worked with a content matter expert who helped develop this workshop for TechGirlz and also taught it for the first time. I also have a guest presenter today, John Cusimano, a longtime volunteer for TechGirlz, who will be helping go through the lesson with you today. And I'd like to have John say hello.
Okay, thank you, Donna. And welcome everybody. I'm glad everybody was available to attend this webinar today. And looking forward to walking you through how to build your own voice app using the VoiceFlow program and being able to then create that for either an Alexa or for a Google Home.
For today, the agenda is we're going to build a voice app. So we're going to go through that step by step. The first couple steps, we'll have the girls walk through testing their microphone and their earphones just to make sure that they can hear all the feedback that's going to come through once they start programming. So we're going to start out with programming speak blocks. We're going to later capture input, and the girls will be developing a quote of the day app, and they'll be entering that data, which will be the quotes that they choose, and they'll configure choice, or they'll have Alexa respond to one choice or the other, and then also work with some error handling so that if the commands are not as expected, what will happen at that time, and all of that needs to be programmed in. So voice app is really cool program to use because you really don't need to be an expert in coding. It's all block based, and you just connect the blocks and configure each block as you go to develop the program as you desire. So today we'll be building a complete voice app. We'll start with some input, and then you'll see how it develops as we go. This app that you build today, you could use either on Alexa or Google. And if you choose, you can publish this if you have an Alexa or Amazon or Google account. As I said earlier, you really don't need any coding experience to work with this VoiceFlow app. You really just need to get familiar with the blocks and how to configure each block as you're building your program. Career opportunities that involve voice app technology would include data engineers, data scientists that specialize in speech and voice recognition, software engineers, and even accessibility engineers. If you were doing this workshop along with us live, we would ask that you connect and test your microphone, test your headphones, and make sure that you can hear your own voice. So the first step in getting started is creating a VoiceFlow account. So if you type in VoiceFlow.
VoiceFlow.com.
That's it, thank you. So the first step in getting started is to sign up for a VoiceFlow account. The button to sign up is right in the upper right-hand corner. You just click on that and fill in all the information, your full name, email address, and create a password. You'll come to a welcome screen, just press continue. The next step, it'll ask you if you're using it as a team or just yourself. Choose just me and then continue. You'll want to also choose design and prototype, that's what we'll be doing today, and then continue. Because this is new and you're learning it for the first time, just choose that you have experience level in coding, none, and complete. When you get to the screen, just exit out of this screen. There's no need to accept the invitation for the VoiceFlow community. And that's something that you're free to do later.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to work on a project. And just to give you an idea of what your completed project will look like, it's going to look something like this. You're going to have these blocks, and the blocks will be connected, and they have programming instructions inside them that you can change some of the parameters yourselves, and then you connect these blocks together. So I know this might look a little bit complicated right now, but trust us, by the end of this instructional video, you should be well on your way towards creating your own program. Okay, so in the VoiceFlow app, we want you to get to this page here. This is essentially kind of like your home page once you've created your account. And you're going to, over here, you'll find there's some example projects that come with the software. And we're going to do a modification of this one here called Quote of the Day, but we're going to make our own version of that. So what we want you to do here is press Create Project on your screen. And you will see a block like this will appear on your canvas. So I'm going to take you over to the actual software so you can see what it looks like there as well. Okay, so here we are in the VoiceFlow application, and we're logged in here as Donna. And here's the example projects, and you see here the Create Project button. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to ask me two things. It's going to ask me to give the project a name, and it's also going to ask me to select the region, which is really the language that I want my voice application to be in. So I'll start with a project name, and I'm going to give this quote project for web instruction. Call it that, and stick with English, and I'm going to create the project. So it takes a little bit. It's going to load up some templates. And you see, like I told you before, the first thing you're going to see pop up on your canvas is what the VoiceFlow people call your page here where you build your program. They call this your canvas. And you see it has dropped down a block called a home block. Over here on the left-hand side is your menu of different blocks. So you have your basic building blocks, the speak block, the choice block, the intent block, and we'll explain those. You have some logic blocks, if, set, capture, so on. You have some more advanced instruction blocks like stream and flow. We probably won't be getting into the advanced ones today. And you can also even include visuals. If you have an Echo Show, for example, that has a screen, you can even incorporate some of that. So here we are. This is the home block. And I want to point out something here. If I hover over this section here, and I realize it's pretty faint for you, but hopefully you see this little block get lighter and darker. These are the connection points. So the blocks connect to each other through these connection points. And just bear that in mind as we keep going through this exercise. All right, so back over in the PowerPoint, just so you can follow along if you have the PowerPoint slides. First thing we're going to do is we want to add a speak block to our program. And a speak block commands Alexa to say something. And so we're going to drag and drop that onto our canvas, and let me show you how that's done back in the software. Okay, so in the software here, in the VoiceFlow software, you'll see under the basic block section, we see the speak block, and I'm just going to grab it with my mouse, drag it, and drop it anywhere on the screen. And it's going to also open up this window here where it gives me a prompt where I can answer some questions about that block. Okay, so we've got our speak block down, and we're going to fill in some information here. So these arrows are going to help give you some hints as to what you need to do here. So one thing we need to do is we need to connect our home block to the input of our speak block, and we're also going to tell Alexa what to say. So we type into here what we want her to say. And let's go back to the software here to do that. Okay, how about the first thing we do is let's connect the home block to the speak block. And again, as I pointed out, there's a little connector block here, and then there's also a connector here. So you put your mouse on the first one, press and hold it, and you see it'll start to draw a line. I'm going to draw my line and I'm going to connect it to here, and it will make that connection. So now my home, the start of the program, well, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to run this speak block. And then I have to tell Alexa what to say. So first thing we're going to do is hello world. Oops. Type that in. I think you can put some punctuation in. And let's try that out. Okay, so I've typed that in. And if you want to see, at any time you can test out your program and see how it's working. So over here you see right now we're in design mode. And then there's prototype mode and build mode. So let's go to prototype mode. That allows us to basically test this out. And you can see my screen has changed here, and I'm going to hit start test.
Hello world.
So hopefully you heard that. The program then runs through and speaks that command for you. So if you're happy with that, or if you need to go back and make some changes, you have two options here. You can either hit the design button here, and that will take you back, or you can also hit return to canvas. And that will take you back to your program. So if I want to change, for example, what the system is going to say, or I can also change the voices. So that voice was probably very familiar to you, but there's some other voices here, like Australian English. So let's hear what that might sound like.
Hello world.
And we can try some other ones here as well. So again, you got to go back to design, hit speak, and let's try Giorgio, who is Italian. Go to prototype mode, hit start test.
Hello world.
Let me do that again, in case you didn't hear that.
Hello world.
So you can have a lot of fun with that. Again, I'm going to go back to design mode here, go to this, and let's go to the next step. All right, so going back to the PowerPoint slides, we've gone this far, we've added our speak, and we've tested that out. Really, all programs must have a stop and an end, or a start and an exit. So let's go back and let's complete this little program by adding an exit. And what we're going to do is we're going to go, actually it's under the advanced set of blocks, we're going to go grab the exit block, and we're going to add that to our program. All right, so this is pretty simple here. We're just going to go to back in VoiceFlow, going to go to the advanced menu, going to find the block called exit. I'm going to drag it and drop it onto my canvas. And I can just click anywhere to get rid of that. And now I want to connect my speak block to my exit block. Again, I find this little box here, in this box here, I click and hold, and I drag and I release. And now I have a completed program. And actually, and this is really, you shouldn't test your program until you've put that exit in there. So again, I can go back to my prototype and I can check out my design, make sure it works, and then I can simply return to canvas. All right, so if you're following along, hopefully you got to that point. Remember, you can always pause this this video and work at your own pace, and then restart. Okay, so back in the PowerPoint. So we're going to actually start building our program for this quote of the day. And so actually what I need you to do, we're going to go back into the speak block and we're going to change. The first thing in our program is Alexa's going to say, hello, what is your name? So let's put that into our program and do that by going back to my software. And I'm going to go to the speak block and I'm going to change it. Instead of saying hello world, I'm going to say hello. And if you put the comma in there, it actually makes her pause a little bit. And you say, hello, what is your name? And if you just want to make sure that that worked okay, and let's pick a voice that we want. How about British Amy? Let's see what that sounds like.
Hello, what is your name?
Very good. Okay, let's go to the next step. Okay, so that's correct. Let's go to the slides for a little bit and talk through the next sequence of things we're going to do. So when Alexa asks you your name, she's actually going to wait for your response, and she's going to record your response. And so we call that a capture function. So she's going to capture some input or some feedback. And we're going to use a block called a capture block from the logic menu. Before I jump over to the program, I'll talk a little bit about what is a variable. So if you've done any programming, you've probably learned about variables, and variables are where we store information, data. It could be numbers, it could be letters or words, it could be a person's name, for example, or in this case, it's actually going to be a small, Alexa's going to hear you say your name, and then she's actually going to convert it into text, and then she's going to read it back to you. So what we're storing here is the response to that, so the variable. So we have to go set up a variable, and we're going to go into the design mode. We're going to go to variables by clicking on this small little box here, and we're going to create a new variable, and we're simply going to call it name, and that's where it's this program is going to store the response. When Alexa asks what's your name, it's going to listen, and it's going to restore the response in this variable called name. All right, why don't we go to the program and do all of that? Okay, so back on our canvas here, I'm going to go to the logic and grab the capture block. I'm just going to drop it anywhere on the screen. And then I'm going to go create my variable. So I'm going to find this. If you remember these three little icons here, that's flows, and then this is variable. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to name my variable. As I said, I'm going to just simply call it name. And I'm going to hit enter to make sure that that is saved. You can see I've now have a new variable called name. So back in the PowerPoint, you can see we've added our variable called name. And the next thing we're going to do is in the capture block, we need to configure with that variable. What are we going to capture the input to? Actually, first is what is the input type? And then what are we going to capture that to? And let me show you what that looks like in this actual voice flow program. So in the capture block, I click on the capture block if you haven't already. And then the input type, we're going to select the input type. So VoiceFlow already has lots of different types of data that it might expect you to hear. And so, as you can see, a lot of different types here. So the one that we're going to pick is way down at the end, and it is called US first name. So this is a kind of pre-configured type of input where it's expecting to hear a name, and actually it's expecting to hear a typical US name. And then I have to tell it what variable do I want to store that to. And you can see if I scroll down, my new variable called name is available. I'm going to click on that. And now I've configured this capture block to listen, record the response as this variable type, first name, and to the variable itself called name. Okay, so our capture block is all configured. So back in PowerPoint then, let's click through the next few steps. So next thing we need to do is we need to connect the output of the speak block to the capture block, but right now it's connected to exit. So we have to actually delete this connection, and then we're going to connect a line from the output of the speak. So after Alexa speaks and asks what is our name, the next thing it's going to do is go to the input of the capture. And then we actually, after that, we want her to speak again. So we're going to drag and drop yet another speak block onto our canvas. We're going to rename that from speak to welcome. And we're going to tell Alexa what to say. And she's going to say, hello, name, and welcome to the quote of the day, except where it says name, which is a variable, she's going to replace that with your name or the name she heard. Then we just simply need to connect everything back up so that we have a whole program that starts with the speak and then to the capture, then to the welcome statement, and then to the exit, and then we'll demo. So let's try all that out in the software. Okay, so back in our VoiceFlow app, first thing I need to do is get rid of this line. So you can see you just kind of hover over it and it starts to blink and this little trash can symbol comes up. Just click on that. Now the line's gone. And now I want to go from the output of the speak to the input capture. Again, click, hold, drag, and release. Sometimes it doesn't always work that easily, so let's try that again. Gotta make sure that little box lights up. And they're very faint, unfortunately. And okay, now we gotta go back to our blocks menu. And I said I wanted to do another speak block. So if you remember, that's a basic block. Drag, and I'm gonna drop that here. And you noticed in the slides, we said, why don't you can change the name of every of these blocks from its kind of standard name to a custom name. So let's call this welcome. That helps us as block programmers know what this block is going to do. And then what do we want her to say? If you remember, we wanted her to say hello. Oops. So now I want to insert this variable. So I've got hello, and then I want her to say our name. So the way you put the variables in, if you notice, they're kind of put in between these kind of squiggly brackets on your keyboard. You want to do a shift, and it's just to the right of the letter P is the open bracket. And I type in name, and then I need to put in a closed bracket. And again, it's a shift, and it's the one just over to the right from that. So she says hello name. And welcome to the quote of the day. Okay, so now I've got that welcome block configured, and now all I really have to do is connect everything up. So I want to go from capture to welcome, and I want to go from welcome to exit. And that's going to get us to the next step in our process, and so I'm going to go back to prototype and check it out, see if I got it right.
Hello, what is your name?
John. Oh, I forgot. So when you're in the prototype mode, it's not like when you're working with a typical Echo device. You have to actually press and hold the space bar for it to listen. So I'm going to do that. John.
Hello, John, and welcome to the quote of the day.
All right, so that worked pretty good. One thing I want to change, because I thought it would be a little nicer if, go back to design, be a little bit nicer if she pauses. So hello, John. I'm going to throw in a comment here. See how that sounds. Should sound a little bit different. Again, we're going to start here.
Hello, what is your name?
All right, then I'm going to press and hold the space bar while I talk. John, release it.
Hello, John, and welcome to the quote of the day.
All right, that sounds a little bit better with that pause. Actually, I want to show you one more thing. When you're testing your programs, if you don't feel like speaking, that's okay. You can just type in your input. So let's do that again. We're going to start the test.
Hello, what is your name?
So here where it says user says, you can actually type your response. And press enter.
Hello, John, and welcome to the quote of the day.
Okay. Okay, so hopefully your demo worked as well. Let's keep going back to the PowerPoint slides. I'm going to go through, talk a little bit about what is a database, because we're going to build a very small, but we're going to build a database of quotations. So what is a database? A database is a place to store data or information that computers use. So stored in a format that computers can readily access and retrieve the information. We can have a small database like the one we're going to build here for quotations. You can have much, much larger databases. For example, Google Earth or Google Maps is based on enormous databases that have all kinds of information about cities and states and roads and highways and topography of the actual geography of the world, and even photos and street view and all kinds of information. So that's a very, very large database. And even the Google database that we search, anytime we search for information on the web, it's browsing a very, very large database that's constantly being expanded upon. So in this case, it's going to be a very, very simple database. We just want to make a database of a few different quotes. We can have as many as we want, really, but we're going to get some quotations and we're going to put them into a block that we're going to call quotes. It's a speak block that we're going to call quotes, and we're going to enter some quotes that Alexa will then randomly tell us or tell the user of our program when you start the program. So let's go back to the, actually one more thing I want to show you before I jump back to the software. But you can see this quote block is going to have a variety of different system says. These are the things that Alexa will say. So these are entries in our database. So when you're working on your own project, if you need any help finding some quotes, there's a lot of different sites out there. But this is one called AZ Quotes or A to Z Quotes.com. You can go there and you can find quotes by anybody who inspires you. It can be somebody, an athlete, an artist, a scientist. It can be somebody, a former president, a current president, anybody, inventors. It could be people that lived long ago, or you can even create your own quotes if there's something inspirational you want to tell people. So if you need some ideas, this is a great place to go, just pointing that out. So now let's go back to programming, and we're going to add our quotation block, and we're going to add some quotes, and let's go back to the software to do that. Where's it? Okay, so back here on our program, we want to add another speak block that's going to have our quotes. So let me make a little bit of room here, actually, and I need to get rid of this connection. So again, I'm going to just click on that delete and grab another speak block. I'm going to put it over here. Actually, maybe I'm going to put it up here. A little bit more room. I'm going to rename that. I don't want it to be called the speak block. I want it to be called quotes. And this will be my database of a variety of different quotes. So let me go get some to type in here. All right. So in my browser, I'm just going to open another tab, and I'm going to go to AZ Quotes. Whoops, I typed that wrong. AZ Quotes. Here we are. And I'm going to get some top quotes. Can be anybody who inspires you. So one of my favorites is John Lennon, who you may know, one of the members of the Beatles. Let's see what kind of quotes we might have for John. I like this one. Time you enjoy wasting was not wasted. So just, whoops. Grab that, yeah. So you copy and paste is the easiest way to do that. I'm just going to go copy that. I'm going to go back to my my canvas here, to my quote block, and I'm going to just paste that in. All right, so there's one. I don't think you need the period, so I'm just going to get rid of that, and I'm going to add another one. Oops, I need to add another system says. So I click on the system button, and again, then I'm going to go back over and grab another quote. Okay, so I've gone back to A to Z Quotes, and I typed in Taylor Swift, and I found one here I liked. If you're lucky enough to be different, never change. So I copied that. I'm going to go back to my VoiceFlow app and type that in. And you might want to try something like this. where Alexa will also say who gave the quote. So I'm going to put a comma in her name. See how that works. So I'm going to go grab a couple more to fill out my quotations. And you should do the same if you're working on this yourself. Okay, so I've added a few more to mine. I added the Taylor Swift one, also one from Serena Williams, and another one from Michelle Obama. Just to keep things a little bit different, this one I said Serena Williams said, in quotes, with a comma. And then this one I said, put Michelle Obama's quote, and I'm going to try it with just a period and then Michelle Obama. So one thing, if you want a different quote every time, or at least if you want them randomized, you see this 3 little dots here, and click on that. We're going to say randomize output. So what that's going to do is every time this program runs this quote block, it's going to give you a different, or at least a random output. You could, in theory, you could get the same one twice, but most likely you would not. So now I've randomized those, and I just now need to connect up my blocks. So I'm going to connect up the welcome to the quotes to the exit, and I now have a complete program that I should be able to run. So I'm going to go to prototype mode, and I'm going to test this.
Hello, what is your name?
Type in John.
Hello, John, and welcome to the quote of the day. If you're lucky enough to be different, never change. Taylor Swift.
Okay, so now my program read me one quote and it stopped. But what if we want to, what if the user wants to hear another quote? So how about we, after Alexa reads us the quote, that she asks us, the user, would you like to hear another quote? And then if we say yes, she gives us another quote. And if we say no, then that ends the program. So let's talk about how to do that. For that, we're going to go back to our slides. All right, so back in our slides here, let's talk a little bit about conditional logic. So conditional logic is when, depending on the response, the program's going to do a different thing. So Alexa's going to ask a question. If you answer yes, then the program's going to go one way. She's going to do one thing. The program's going to do one thing. And if you say no, then it's going to go do something else. It's simple conditional logic. So this is called a flow chart, and this is another way of looking at it. So when Alexa says, want to hear another quote, you can either answer yes, and she will say another random quote, and it'll go back and ask you that over and over and over again until you say no, and then it will end the program. So that's what we're going to program into our little voice flow app. Is we're going to program in this logic where every time you say yes, you'll get another random quote, and then when you say no, it will end. So how do we do that? Well, first thing we need to do is we're going to need to add another speak block, because we want Alexa to say something after she reads us the first quote. We want her to ask the question, would you like to hear another quote? So that's simply another speak block. But now we got to get a little trickier, because now we have to decide what we're going to do with the response. So we're calling that configuring a choice. And for that, we're going to use a block called a choice block. Again, we're going to drag and drop that onto our canvas. And we're also going to then drag this quote block on top of our choice block. And I'll show you that in a minute when we go to the software, but it combines the two blocks by dragging this one on top of this one. It's kind of clever. It'll combine it into one block that has the question, another quote, and then what do we do with the response? So we're calling that a conditional block. And the basic two things we expect somebody to say are yes or no. So we have to set up in our logic here, what should we do if the person says yes? And so we're going to pick up one of our choices is going to be yes. And then the other choice is going to be what if they say no. And those are going to be assigned to these two different values here. So 1 is yes and 2 is no. So this is a little hard to see, so I'm going to do that one more time. There's two little output nubs on this block. There's actually three. One says else, one says 1, and one says 2. We're going to get to else in a minute. But the first thing is 1 and 2. So 1 corresponds to, it's called the yes intent. So if they say yes, if the user says yes, it corresponds to output number 1. If the user says no, it corresponds to output number 2. So what do we do with that? So in our program here, we're going to go after Alexa reads us our first quote, it's going to go here and say, would you like another quote? Again, 1 is yes, 2 is no. So if they say no, then we're just going to simply exit our program. We're done. But what if the user says yes, they want another quote? Well, this is our quote block that has our database of quotes. So we need to connect output number 1 that corresponds to the word yes. We take it back to the input of this quote block. And then she'll read us another quote. And then where do we want to go from there? We actually want her to go back and ask us, do we want another quote? So that's already connected up. All right, so it seemed a little bit tricky, but let's go over to the software and let's make all those connections. So I'm going to go back to my program that we've been working on here. And let's see how we can do that. So I've already dropped this choice block down, but let me back up a bit here and remember what we want to do step by step. So we're going to grab this choice block. You can find that here under the basic blocks, but we also need, remember, we need another speak block first, because we want Alexa to say, would you like to hear another quote? Let's drop that block down and type that in. Would you like to hear another quote? Question mark. That's the speak block. Now the choice block, we're going to drop that here. And then this was kind of the tricky part. We're going to take the, oh, actually we're going to name this too. We're going to name this another, oops. Rename this block to be called another quote. Just so we remember what it's for. And we're going to drag it, grab it, drag it, drop it onto the choice. See how it lit up blue? And when it does, you can let go. And now you got this new block, which is kind of a merger of the speak block and the choice block. Okay, and we could also give this a name, actually. So this is, just stick with the slides. We're going to call this a conditional block. And now we've got our two, click on the choice part of this. We have path 1, and we're going to configure path 1 and path 2. So the first thing we need to do is put in something called our intent. So all we're going to do here is we're looking for 1 is yes, 2 is no. So you'll see if you scroll down, you'll find that yes already exists. So just grab that and click that. And it changed it. 1 is now called yes intent. And then we want to add another one. So add another path. So each of these are called paths. So this path 1 is yes intent. Path 2 is going to be called no. And since no does not exist here, that's okay. We can just type that in. I don't know if caps make a difference, but let me see if I can capitalize that. Maybe I can't. Oh, okay. Apparently you cannot. So I'm just going to type in the word no. And so now I have both yes and no. Okay, actually back up a second here. I made a bit of a mistake. We don't want to type that in. We actually want to go look through the list, and I just scrolled past it. So the word no is right there. So pick that. And now it changed it to is no intent and the word no. So these are kind of like pre-programmed intended responses that we might, that the user might give us. So they might say yes, they might say no. Again, 1 is yes, 2 is no. So now we have to just connect these up. And if you remember, what we said we were going to do is we're going to connect the no response to exit. So exit's over here. I've got to get rid of that connection. Make some room. I'm going to move that over. It's easy to grab and drag these blocks. Again, we got to look for this little square here. Click on that. Click on the next one. Release. Now that's connected. And then the trickier part was if the person says yes, we want to go back to the input of the quote block. So I press and hold there. Make sure you're on the 1 and not on the else. And make sure it gets a nice connection. That was not a good connection. So right to there. And then I want to go from the output of the quote block to another quote. Go over here and connect that up to there. And let's see if that's correct. Okay, so if your program looks like this, then it should be all set to go. So we've got everything connected up in our output, so it is demo time. So let's go over to prototype and we'll start our test.
Hello, what is your name?
John. John.
Hello, John, and welcome to the quote of the day. If you're lucky enough to be different, never change. Taylor Swift. Would you like to hear another quote?
Yes. Yes.
If you're lucky enough to be different, never change. Taylor Swift. Would you like to hear another quote?
That's an example of where even though it's random, I got the same one twice. So we try that again. Press and hold the space bar. Yes.
Success isn't about how much money you make. It's about the difference you make in people's lives. Michelle Obama. Would you like to hear another quote?
Yes.
Time you enjoy wasting was not wasted. Would you like to hear another quote?
No. All right. So my program works. But what would happen if we, instead of saying no or yes, what if somebody said something else?
Hello, what is your name?
John.
Hello, John, and welcome to the quote of the day. Success isn't about how much money you make. It's about the difference you make in people's lives. Michelle Obama. Would you like to hear another quote?
Nah. Okay, so it ended that time. But people could say possibly different things, and the program might get confused. So let's talk about how we can make sure our program is able to respond to no matter what response the person gives it. Okay, so back over to our slides here. So we did our demo, and that worked okay. But now we want to do a few things to fix up our program to make it as reliable as possible, no matter what the user says. So one thing we want to do, simply when the user does say no, that they don't want to hear any more quotes, we're going to simply have Alexa make some kind of a goodbye statement. So we'll have her say, okay, it was nice to meet you, name, have a nice day. That's the first thing we're going to do, but we're also going to take advantage of something called error handling. So what is error handling? This is something used in programming or coding to be able for the software to be able to predict and respond to bad inputs or errors. If something goes wrong, what should the program do? Because sometimes if you don't tell a program what to do when there's an error, sometimes it can be what we say hung up. We'll just sit there and wait or end or not be sure what to do. So we're going to add a block. It's going to be another speak block. And so if Alexa hears an input other than yes or no, then it's going to go to this else output. And that else output is going to connect to this block called error handling. And Alexa will say, sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Do you want to hear another quote? Please say yes or no. And be a little bit more clear in how she wants you to respond. So how do we do that? We create that block. It's a speak block. We're going to connect it to the else output. And so if the user says really anything other than yes or no, it'll go to this error handling. She'll make that statement. And then we're going to connect the output of the error handling block back into this conditional block into the another quote. In other words, she's just going to ask you again, and that should be all we have to connect up to see if our error handling works. So again, let's go back to the VoiceFlow app and let's add those different things. So if you remember, we need to add our goodbye block. Get rid of that. Oops. Okay, remember to go back into the design mode. So now I'm in design mode. I want to add another speak block. I'm going to drag and drop that here. And it's going to say, this is our goodbye statement. So we're going to just call this goodbye. Oops. That's all one word, I think. And then we're going to type in here what Alexa is supposed to say. Okay, so I've typed in, okay, it was nice to meet you. Remember, we want her to state back your name. So you put again, you use the open bracket and the close bracket and the word name. That puts our variable name there. Have a nice day. So that's our speak block. Now I got to disconnect that. And I want to, if it's no, we want to first say goodbye. And then we want to end. So make Alexa be a little bit more polite by doing that. And then if you remember, the other thing we want to now put in is our error handling. So I go to my speak, I drag that here. I'm going to call this error handling. And I'm going to type in what Alexa is supposed to say for that. Okay, so I just paste that in there. So sorry, I didn't quite get that. Actually, I think she should probably pause. So let's put a comma there. Sorry, I didn't quite get that. Do you want to hear another quote? Please say yes or no. Okay, that's all we need for that block to say. So if you remember, we're going to connect that to the else. So else is if it's not 1 or 2, then it's else. In other words, if it's not yes or no. So grab my cursor here, click and hold, drop it here. So she says that to us, reminding us to say yes or no. And then she's going to ask that question again. Do we want to hear another quote? So I want to go here. Another quote. That should be done with my logic here. So let's give that a try. Let's go to prototype and start the test.
Hello, what is your name?
John.
Hello, John, and welcome to the quote of the day. Time you enjoy wasting was not wasted. Would you like to hear another quote?
Right, so now I'm going to give her a response that she doesn't expect, not yes or no. Maybe.
Sorry, I didn't quite get that. Do you want to hear another quote? Please say yes or no. Would you like to hear another quote?
Yes.
If you're lucky enough to be different, never change. Taylor Swift. Would you like to hear another quote?
Let's try some other responses because VoiceFlow already has some synonyms built in automatically. So I'm going to say yeah and see if that works. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't quite get that. Do you want to hear another quote? Please say yes or no. Would you like to hear another quote?
Oh, so but did not know that the word yeah was the same as yes. I'm going to try one more thing. Sure.
Success isn't about how much money you make. It's about the difference you make in people's lives. Michelle Obama, would you like to hear another quote?
No.
Okay. It was nice meeting you. Name. Have a nice day.
Uh-oh. So something wasn't quite right with our program there if you heard it said name instead of my name. So let's go see what happened. I think I know what it was. I've got to get out of prototype mode and into design. I noticed here that it was capitalized, and I don't think it's supposed to be. So let me type that in again. Actually, that looks a little better. See how it changed it to blue? Now it actually recognized it as a variable. Before it didn't know that. So let's try that again. So our goodbye block wasn't actually quite programmed correctly. And also, if you notice that the word sure was accepted as a synonym for yes, but yeah was not. I think that's all built into this yes intent and no intent logic, which is kind of behind the scenes in VoiceFlow. They have identified what some different synonyms are for yes and no, and they've put those in to make our lives a little bit easier as programmers. So let's check and see if our that goodbye works correctly now. So I'm going to start my test again.
Hello, what is your name?
John.
Hello, John, and welcome to the quote of the day. Serena Williams said, I really think a champion is defined not by their wins but by how they can recover when they fall. Would you like to hear another quote?
No. No.
Okay. It was nice meeting you, John. Have a nice day.
All right, that worked out pretty good. Okay. Okay, so that's our basic program. There's some other things, and I'm sure you can all think of different things that you might want to do to customize your program. Take, for example, our quotes. Right now, they all are in the same Alexa voice, but we could change that. So my first one here is the John Lennon quote, time you enjoy wasting is not wasted. So how about we change that to more of a British English and a man's voice, because John Lennon was British. And then system says, this is the the Taylor Swift. How about a slightly different, I don't see Taylor, but let's try Joanna, that voice. And then here, Serena Williams, let's pick another US English voice. And of course, female. Try that. And then let's try, this is Michelle Obama. So also US English, and I think we should stay with a woman's voice. And so, for example, you can do that kind of thing. You could add additional choices to your choice block. So right now we have yes and no, but you can add additional paths. And I started to put one in here too. So you might want to pick one, for example, that says help. And if the user says help, then you might do something different by say, answer yes or no. Again, these are just little changes that you could possibly make to your program. Of course, you can change all of the text and what Alexa says. And so have fun with it. Think of different things that you might want to add to your program and make those changes. I'm going to go back to our slideshow here. And we left off right around here with the error handling in our demo. So what did we learn today? So we learned the basics of voice programming. AI stands for artificial intelligence, and the ability of a computer to be able to hear the spoken word and understand what it means is part of the technology of artificial intelligence. And that's built into of course, into the VoiceFlow and the actually in the Alexa app or the Google Home application. We learned about variables and what they are, the types of variables and how to create them. We learned about conditional logic, if this, do this, if this, do that, and so on. We learned about randomization, and we learned how to connect up these program blocks in VoiceFlow. So we're going to open it up to some Q&A here in a minute, but we're definitely interested in hearing lots of feedback from you, but certainly things like what did you like? What might you be, how could you take what you've learned here and create your own app and maybe either extend the one we've worked on or maybe just create something from scratch where you would like to program for Alexa to ask questions and give you different responses depending on the type of answers. You could even program a short conversation with Alexa by predicting the types of answers that people may give to questions and
which one did you want?
And take it from there. If for more advanced users, if you're over 13 years old and you have an Amazon account, you can actually, and you have Alexa devices at home, you can actually upload your program to your own. And you do that by clicking on this upload button here and connecting your Amazon account. Let me quickly show you how to do that in case you're either an instructor or if you're over 13, then you can have an account. And just to point out here, within VoiceFlow, you have a choice of programming for the Amazon Alexa type devices or the Google Home. So we're clicked on Alexa. And you just simply click on this button here, upload. And it takes a little while. It'll say uploading.
It takes a while on, say, uploading added to your shopping list.
Okay, it takes a little while, but after a while, it'll say upload successful. It may also prompt you if you hadn't already, I had, but if you hadn't already, it will prompt you to log into your Amazon account. And now the upload is successful. And what that does also is it opens up something called the Alexa Developer Console. And you may have to accept that you want to set up a developer account or to add developer capabilities to your account. But what that does, as you've probably heard throughout here, I have a device here, an Amazon Echo device. So I've now uploaded. And so instead of hearing it come out of my computer, we're going to do the same thing, but with a real device. And this one is connected to my account. This will only work for devices connected to the account that you upload to. So as you can see here in my console, I have a skill here called Inspirational Quotes. These are the skills that I've created. So in order to invoke that, you have to ask to open that. So I'm going to give you a quick little demonstration here. So Alexa, open Inspirational Quotes.
What is your name?
John.
Hello, John. Welcome to the quote of the day. Rosalind Franklin said, in my view, all that is necessary for faith is the belief that by doing our best we shall succeed in our aims, the improvement of mankind. Do you want to hear another quote?
No.
Okay. It was nice meeting you, John. Have a nice day.
All right, so that's a quick little demo on a real device. So that can be a lot of fun to create your own programs and play them on the devices in your home. And as a developer, you can actually publish skills that would be out for the public as well. But we're not going to go into that today. That's a more advanced topic. If we were doing this in a real classroom, we would have individuals that have created their applications share those. Since we're in a webinar format today, we're not going to do that. But we are going to open up this up to Q&A to get your feedback. And for that, you'll use the chat window in the Zoom meeting. Just to wrap things up, Donna has some last words for you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the webinar today. We're really excited to get this topic out there, published on our website and available for anyone to teach It's really a lot of fun and quite easy to learn once you get the hang of it. And there's so much you could do with it. I hope you continue to experiment with it and develop some really nice apps for yourself. If we were doing this as a live workshop for the girls, we would have them fill out our survey and get a certificate of completion. And certainly anybody who goes through this tutorial is welcome to click on the link and fill out the survey. We really would like to know what you thought of the workshop and are curious about the apps that you create. And we certainly would like to hear from you. If you'd like to share your projects, we would love to see them and see how you do. Thank you again for participating today, and certainly feel free to play the video back as many times as you like. Go over the steps slowly at your own pace and take your time and really enjoy creating your own voice app.